Hello and welcome to this seminar. It's good to see at least some faces here, not as much as we always want, but some. And what's going to allow us is to have perhaps a better conversation after at the end with John. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Teresa Silva. I'm a forensic psychologist and a researcher in the criminology field. And before we start, just let you know, let me see here, that you can put your questions in Swedish or in English if you want, in any time during the seminar. Yes, you just have to grab your phone while we are speaking. You just have to grab your phone, go to www.menti.com, introduce the code 188346 and post your question. At the end of the seminar, John and I will start to answer all the questions. And if we run out of time, if you put many questions and we run out of time, we will answer the remaining questions afterwards in a podcast that we will upload in our Criminology Million YouTube channel. And starting now with the content of the seminar, I want to briefly explain you how I became interested in studying, evaluating, and interviewing men who had been victims of intimate partner violence. During my years as a forensic psychologist practitioner and as a researcher, I worked directly with many men, some women too, perpetrators of many different types of crime, violent crimes in many occasions. My experience with victims focus on children, victims of maltreatment and sexual abuse that during adolescence, later during adolescence, developed themselves criminal and violent behavior. So my experience in the domestic context was related to adult maltreatment toward their children or child-to-parent violence. The few cases of intimate partner violence that I met were of men, in general with severe problems of alcohol and drug abuse, who used to behave violently not only toward their spouses, but toward almost anyone who dared in getting close to them, in especial while they were intoxicated. My years of education, research practice, and living in Spain, where Catholicism is still so dominant, taught me that males are the perpetrators, females are the victims when we talk about domestic violence. And furthermore, all the reports, the statistics reported every year about female homicide perpetrated by their partners seem to confirm what we already knew, or what I thought that I already knew. But almost anecdotally, due to my immense admiration for whom I think is one of the best actors of all time, I came across a high-profile case that perhaps you have heard of it. In this case, the female spouse reported to the police in May 2016 that she had been victim of physical assault by her partner. In consequence, she was granted a restraining order. The day that she reported the abuse to the police, she was seen and photographed with a bruise around her eye and on her right cheek. Now, the interesting thing is that the day after, she was also photographed, and the bruise had miraculously disappeared. Furthermore, multiple camera footage of the CCTV system of their apartment clearly showed that there was no injury in any visible part of her body. Now, those of you, we don't have police here, but perhaps social services, even victim support know that false allegations in divorce processes are not infrequent. Happens in general to enhance the chances of getting the custody of the children or for financial profit. That, for me, it seems to be the case. Initially, it seems to be the case here. I also saw some video of her depositions, and after reading and went through the case court files, I got the suspicion that she might have high levels of psychopathic traits that for long had been a topic on my research. But my attention turned from her when I started to go deeper in the court files, and I realized that the case was not only about false allegations, but that in multiple occasions she had had violent outbursts in which she had kicked, slapped, beaten, and thrown objects at her partner. In one occasion, due to the violence deployed in one of these outbursts, he had to receive medical attention, specifically surgery for a complete severed finger. While in the hospital, he got an infection by antibiotic multi-resistant bacteria and almost lost his arm. But as it happens in so many occasions, he didn't report. If any of you has ever worked with victims of intimate partner violence, this might sound quite familiar. There are also some audio recorded phone calls in which she admitted that she had beaten him. And even in one occasion, she mocked him and writes something like this that I'm going to read for you. Oops. Quote, go and say, I, Johnny Depp, a man, I am a victim too of domestic violence. See how many people believe or side with you, end quote. So, white, middle-aged, rich, famous men can be victims too, victims of female perpetration of intimate partner violence. Immediately, 100 questions came to my mind. How many men are there victims of intimate partner violence? Who are these men? What are the statistics? Do they report as same as women? What happened when they report? Are they believed? What are the consequences of the abuse to their health? And 1 million questions that came to my mind. And so I did what in general we researchers do. I start to search for information. But from the beginning, this is an underdog, I was advised and, for a friend, a colleague and a good friend of mine that perhaps it was not wise for my career to go on that direction, because if I tried to write articles about men victims of intimate partner violence, I should expect many difficulties to publish them. Anyway, those of you who know me knows that my first concern is not about exactly how successful my academic career is. My first concern is and has always been for the victims. Any victim. It doesn't matter how poor or how rich you are. It doesn't matter if you are a native or an immigrant. It doesn't matter if you are black or white, old or young, fat or thin. It doesn't matter if you are a woman or a man. If you are a victim, that's it. You deserve all my respect. I do care for you, and I'll do whatever I can to help and to support you. Anyway, what I bring to you today here is a small part of the information that I came across during my review of the scientific literature and a window for what my research is about. I aim to deeply analyze the experiences of men victims of intimate partner violence in order to understand the whole victimization process, not only at the hands of an abusive partner, but also at the hands of those institutions that supposedly exist to protect them, what in criminology we call secondary victimization. I'm working in base of this model here that is perhaps a bit complex, that if someone feels interested at the end, I can explain to you. But just going and taking a look on the scientific literature, interesting results on the scientific literature, the first that got my attention is that since the 70s of the past century, many studies have demonstrated that the rates of male and female perpetration of intimate partner violence are quite similar. mainly in these big national surveys in which a large number of individuals is inquired. In 2012, for example, the National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey in the United States found that more men than women had been, in the previous 12 months, victims of physical violence in an intimate context. And that over 40% of the severe physical violence was directed at men. This is not what we would expect, right? At least was not what I was expecting. We are much more used to information like this, to graphs like this, that represents the number of cases of intimate partner violence reported to the Swedish police, and in which we can see clear that men are only the 20% of the total amount of victims. So what does that mean? That in the United States we have more men being victimized than we have in Sweden, or is any of these statistics wrong, or the studies wrong? What happened is that the studies that I showed you in the United States are based in surveys in which the persons self-report very anonymously, while the case in Sweden represents the reports that the police consider as a case. And for that, first, the man or the person needs to give the step to go to the police and report, and second, under the same circumstances, the police might be willing to consider the incident as a case if it's reported by a woman than if it's reported by a man. And this happens. What perhaps is happening is that we are in the same historical moment with men that we were with women 20 years ago. 20 years ago, the whole justice system, many social partners, politicians, policymakers deployed an enormous effort to encourage more women victims to report the violence that they were submitted to behind closed doors. And on that moment, many social movements rised, and in a gradual manner, but steadily, we all were able to make that each time more women reported. And we can see it in this graph that represents the number of cases of gender violence reported to the police in Spain. The problem is that in countries like Spain, there is a law for gender violence for women victims, but there is not a law for gender violence for male victims. So this is discrimination. What perhaps has happened is that, or my lecture, my reading, what has happened is that in our effort to help women, we forgot a part of the whole group of victims. Now, if this part is 20% or 50%, perhaps that depends on how we measure it. But for sure, there are men victims of intimate partner violence too. Now, this, of course, what leads is that men do not report. Men do not seek for help. And when they do, they are just not believed. And all the misogynistic messages that are coming out every day, everywhere, are making the problem even worse. Perhaps what we must do is start to deploy for the whole society, without discriminating victims by gender, the same effort that we deployed for women, so that we are able to decrease the total amount of victims of violence in intimate contexts. Not only those perpetrated by men against women, but also those perpetrated by women against men. And by men against men and by women against women. I mean, let's not discriminate victims. Let's not stigmatize them. Let's not make them suffer beyond what they already suffer behind the walls of their homes. Let's not use them for our political purposes. And opening now a window for you of what my research is about, today we have with us John James, who himself was a victim of an 18-month nightmare that is so well described in his book From the Darkness, released in 2018, and that I, of course, recommend to you all. John, you want to come? My first question, I have to say to you, I interviewed John for my research 6-8 months ago perhaps, but I'm going to base the questions that I'm going to do to him on his book, on parts of his book. So if someone reads the book after, you are able to understand. At the beginning of your book, you painted Monica as a delightful, lovely, shy woman that brought you joy and happiness. So for a while, you thought that she was the woman of your dreams. Can you tell us how it all started?
I was married at the time, and the marriage wasn't going well, and I never even thought of like meeting anybody else. And I walked into work one day, and Monica was there, and it was like you see in films, fireworks and and such. And I just thought she was amazing from the moment I saw her. Mm-hmm. And we just got to talking, and she said everything right, mm-hmm. everything that I felt, she felt, everything that I liked, she liked, and it was like the perfect match. And what, a month into us working together and talking and getting together, then I ended my marriage that I wasn't happy with and began to see Monica. When
did all the abuse started in your relationship?
See, I didn't see it.
Was from the beginning, or it was later in the relationship?
About a month in. I didn't see it as abuse at first because mm-hmm. it was what she called playing. Mm-hmm. So she'd pinch my flesh and twist it really hard, or she'd punch me in the chest. And if I said anything, if I complained that it hurt, then it was. You're supposed to be a man. I'm only playing for God's sake. Mm-hmm. So eventually I stopped complaining about it, because in my mind it was like, is she really playing? Am I just being too soft? Am I being too sensitive? So eventually I stopped complaining about that.
So you did the question, am I being a man or not, for yourself?
Almost. Yeah, and I thought, am I really being too sensitive? I am supposed to be a guy here, so...
Yeah, okay. You tell the reader that soon after you started your relationship, Monica wanted to have control of your moves.
Yeah.
Right? So know where you were all the time, blackmail you even, so you would get back home when she wanted. What did you usually do then when she did that moves, and how did it make you feel?
The first time she did it, I went to a comedy concert that I'd had tickets for 12 months, and I said I was going, and she said, no, you can't go. I need you here. Mm-hmm. I said, well, what do you need me for? And she couldn't answer. She just wanted me to be there. Mm-hmm. So I did go to the concert, but before I left, I was ignored. When I did leave, I got nasty texts all the way to the concert while I was in the town where the concert was, and I didn't really enjoy it at all, because this was just playing on my mind all the time. So I had tickets for other concerts that I didn't go to. One concert I did go to, and I had to lie about it. I had to say that I was going to a funeral. Mm-hmm. And as for when I went to the pub to watch the football, which I did I used to do quite often, she would text me all the time. She would call me all the time, and eventually I stopped going, because I knew that if I did go out, that's what I'd get. I wouldn't be able to enjoy anything, so I stopped going to that at all, and I didn't go out anywhere without her then. So
the rest of the time you would go out with her all the time?
She'd go out on her own. Mm-hmm. She'd go out to see her friends and stuff like that. Mm. But if I did, this is what I'd get. So I felt like I couldn't go out. I felt like I wouldn't enjoy it if I did, because I'd just get the text and the calls. Mm-hmm. So I didn't go out except without her then.
So can I tell that is your own decision in not going out? because you felt that you...
Yeah, it was my own decision.
By coercion.
But yeah. But I knew that I wouldn't enjoy it if I did go out.
Mm-hmm. In your book also you describe nasty things that Monica used to say to you, to humiliate you, to destroy your self-esteem.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Many times she played with your dreams. For example, she knew very well that you wanted to have a child, and she played with that.
Yeah.
How often did that happen during your relationship, and what effect did it have on you?
She would do it a lot. Like I said about questioning my masculinity, she would do that a hell of a lot. And it got to when she started an argument, it would be the nastiest things she could come up with. And as soon as she see my face change, as soon as she hit the spot, so to speak, then a little smile would come on her face because she knew that it hurt then. I ended up with no self-esteem, no confidence at all, because I was constantly called fat, old, ugly, anything to put me down. The worst comment was, she always said, I want a child with you. You're the only person I want a child with. You know, it would be great if we were a family. But when she'd get angry, she'd say, if I ever got pregnant with your child, I'd have an abortion.
So it was not all the time. Sometimes she was happy and tell things that you want to hear.
Yeah.
And when she was on the bad mood, she...
Yeah, the nastiest things she can come up with, yeah.
Could you predict when were the good moods and the bad moods?
No, that was the scariest part. That I could walk in the house, and I'd be like, okay, is this going to be a good day or a bad day? And if it was a good day, great. It's like drug addiction. If it was a good day, I was on a high. It was fantastic. If it was a bad day, it just destroyed me.
In any moment in these good days, in these high parts, were you thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen when these moments are finished? Or were you thinking that it's going to be a bad mood after this?
It would start off that there was clear good days and bad days. So if it was a good day, it would be a good day. If it was a bad day, it would be a bad day. But then it got to the point where total confusion sets in, because a good day can turn into a bad day very quick. Just one thing wrong, said wrong by me, or in her eyes, said wrong by me, or done wrong by me, could just turn it just like that. So it was very unpredictable.
Okay. You describe many episodes of physical assault perpetrated by Monica, occasionally hard enough to cause you to have to seek medical attention.
Yeah.
But if I quite understood, Monica was a short, skinny woman.
Yeah.
Did she really have the strength to harm you?
I can answer that in several ways. Yes, because when you're a man faced with that, you freeze because you don't know what to do. You can't hit back. You learn from an early age that men don't hit women. I know that men do, but you know, if you're a decent guy, then you don't hit a woman. So you don't know what to do. So one, you freeze, which makes you a target. And then there's many a time where I've just stood there and I've just been punched and kicked and just can't do anything, don't do anything. And you can take any lady here, the shyest, most fragile lady here, and I'm a big bloke, she was only tiny, and she isn't going to do much damage, but add to that rage, and then you've got a problem. When there's rage behind it, yeah, she can do some damage. And she, the first big attack that I had, she repeatedly kicked me in my back. The next day I collapsed at work. I was taken into hospital, gas and hair. Defended her because they said what had happened, and I said, oh, I was cleaning under a table and the chair that was on top of the table fell on me. He didn't believe that. And if I'd have been a woman, then he might have reported that. But as a bloke, he didn't. And I was off work for 5 weeks, 3 of those weeks on crutches. And even though I was on crutches for those 3 weeks, she called me a faker.
Okay. But you are telling these moments in which Monica are enraged, right?
Yeah.
And that, but you are also telling when she used it to play what she called playing, right? And that also hurt you, if I understand. So it was in rage, but also in moments that were not out of the rage.
The playing wasn't rage at all. If you have somebody, it doesn't matter how strong you are, if you have somebody grab your skin and twist it, then that's going to hurt. You know.
Okay. It comes to a moment in your book that it's clear that you were completely social isolated.
Yeah.
Right? So you didn't want to contact your parents, you didn't want to contact your friends, and you didn't even know how to behave with your colleagues at work.
No.
How it is to live with the feeling that you have all the doors closed, in part because you have closed them.
Lonely, scared, confused. She'd convinced me that everybody hated me at work. So it was very awkward at work. I couldn't speak to anybody. I didn't trust anybody at work because of what she said. And I couldn't tell my friends or family what I was going through. My dad had been seriously ill for a while, so I didn't want to put that onto my family. I didn't know whether my friends would be there or not, so I didn't talk to anybody really. And I felt ashamed of it as well. I felt ashamed of being, treated like that by a woman, by the person who's supposed to love me.
And also because you split sometime, and after going back with her, you didn't want to tell others because you were ashamed.
The first time that we split, I did tell a friend of mine, and she said, "What would you do if it was me?" And somebody treated me like that. I said I wouldn't be happy about it, and she said, "Well, I'm not happy about it, so you cannot go back, John." So when I did, I was like, I can't tell my friends about that. I can't tell my friends that we've got back together again.
And that's the other question that I have for you. So there are moments in your book that it's clear that you cannot stand more that relationship. So a couple of times you just break and split.
Yeah.
But your fear of losing her makes you back again with her. How do you explain this?
Simply, I can't.
I can't explain
why. I can't explain why I had a fear of losing her. I don't know. I do know that the reason that I was with her, the reason that I put up with that, was hope.
Hope.
I hoped she would change. I hoped I could be the man that she wanted me to be. I hoped it would get better. How can somebody who loves me as much as she said she did, in the good times, be so nasty to me, be so violent to me? There had to be, in my mind, there had to be something behind that. And if you read the book, you can see her past, that she did have a very abusive past. I wanted to understand that. I wanted to fix her, if you like. But I was never going to fix her. And I didn't understand that until it was over altogether.
So during the whole relationship, there are moments that she says that she loves you.
Yeah.
That she keeps saying that she loves you.
Yeah. And like I say, it was like an addiction. It was like you had the highs and you had the lows. Unfortunately, as the relationship progressed, the lows become more frequent.
Okay. Because there are moments also in your book that you describe that she telling you that she hates you, absolutely hates you. And there was one last question, is that the last time you split, you went to the police to report the abuse, but it seems that the police didn't believe you,
No.
right? So What made you on that moment go to the police? What made you finally saying, I report this, and how the officer's response made you feel?
The reason I went to the police is because when it was over, there's that space where you can get your head together. Because when it's happening, your head's so messed up, you're so confused, that you don't do anything because you can't function properly. Mm-hmm. So in that space where I could function properly, and I did eventually tell a friend of mine when it was over for good, and he said, you've got to report this. So I went to the police, and they took all the information that I gave them. I gave them photographs of my flat that was smashed to pieces by her. But they said, "Oh no, we're not going to deal with that. We'll deal with the latest incident." All the other photographs they threw out. They ignored a 10-minute recording that I had of like just 10 minutes of her ranting at me and insulting me and belittling me. They completely ignored that. I had a photo of a bite mark on my hand that they did interview her about, and she said, "I bit myself." And the police went, "Oh, it's your word against hers." But as soon as I walked in that room, I knew that they didn't believe me. And they interviewed her just because it was routine. And they did nothing, which I felt totally lost then. If they don't believe me, what can I do? And that's when I turned to punching myself in the face. And I wrapped a cord around my neck, and I passed out through strangling myself. Mm-hmm.
So you described several behaviors of yours of self-destructive.
Yeah,
after
definitely.
This.
Yeah.
How long did it take until you start to feeling that you were getting over all the situation that you?
I went to India and Nepal just to find some breathing space, and the people that I met there were fantastic. They taught me a new way of living, that the past doesn't exist apart from in your own head, that you have to live in the now, you know. And when I came back, and when I was there, I thought about myself and my own personality, and I knew that I wasn't perfect, and I had to change, and I had to give more. When I got back, so I became a better person because of it, and I started to recover from that by living in the now, and that's when I wrote the book, and that was very cathartic then.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever met Monica again?
I've seen her a few times.
How do you feel?
First time I saw her, it floored me. It was horrible. But then I saw her with a new boyfriend, and I thought, oh my God. And she was talking down to him, he was standing behind her, his head was down, he was, okay, agreeing with her, walking behind her. And I just thought, that guy's going through the same as me. But I knew that if I go up to him and say, I know what you're going through, he'd deny it, he'd defend her like I did.
Because it is what you would have done if someone would tell you that.
That's what I did when I was in the hospital. I defended her, completely hid it. But, I've seen her a couple of times since, and I have no reaction at all now. I don't feel anything now. I did invite her, because me and Tom are making the From the Darkness documentary about female perpetrators, and I'm talking to other male victims of abuse. And I did write her an email and invite her to come on camera, talk to me, no agenda, say exactly what you want. And the email that I got back was a treasure trove of narcissism. And, so I've recovered now, and I'm just helping other male victims to recover and to speak out, because that's what we need to do. People need to speak out.
You don't wake up in the night anymore dreaming that Monica is punching you, has some dreams that you had on that night.
Yeah, I did. When we did break up, yeah, that's what I do. I'd wake up in the night and I'd be running downstairs and locking the door because I'd have dreams of Monica stabbing me and attacking me in my sleep. And yeah, but I don't have any dreams like that anymore. I met a wonderful woman now who is absolutely fantastic and really supportive of everything I do. So,
do you think that the relationship with Monica, in a certain or in any way, is marking the relationship that you are having now?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
She has no effect on me at all now. Nothing. The only effect she has on me is that she's the driving force behind all this, behind the From the Darkness. She was the driving force behind that and driving force behind the documentary. So what she did to me is helping me help others now. So she has no detrimental effect.
In a certain way, she helped you to acquire an identity as a victim or as a survivor, right? So you are now identified with that image of survivor.
In a way, without what happened to me, I wouldn't be the man that I was, but that I am now. I wouldn't have met yourself and other amazing people that I've met. I wouldn't be here talking about it today. I wouldn't be trying to help other people. So,
when you are speaking with me, do you notice some kind of anxiety on you yet, or that has disappeared? You can speak.
No, when I've been talking to you about it and stuff has been brought up, I can feel myself getting emotional. I don't know whether you can hear it, but I can feel myself being emotional.
Okay, I'm going to ask you now, a last effort. Perhaps we have in the audience someone that still believes that men cannot be victims. Perhaps we have any man who had been victim. Perhaps we have, I don't know, social people on the social services. We have us. What would you like to tell us? What is the message of your book that you want us to remember?
You have to speak out. I don't care whether you're man, woman, whatever, especially men though, because women will speak out. In today's society with women, it's easy for women, or easier for women to say, I was a victim. And this man did this to me. But it's not easy for a guy to do it. The police don't understand because they work off what's called the Duluth model, where women are victims and men are perpetrators. The police didn't believe me, and when I've interviewed other male victims of abuse, they've actually called the police to report abuse. When the police have arrived at the house, they've arrested them. They've arrested the man. So it's really difficult for the man to speak out. Has any of you guys know or have been a victim of domestic violence by a man? Nobody?
Heavier, no.
That's good. Has anybody been or known a victim by a female perpetrator? Can you tell us anything about it?
I'm not a victim, but I used to work as a journalist, so I wrote a book about a man who was... you have to excuse me in English as well. It was a book about a man, a criminal case about a man who actually killed his wife after 8 years of abuse from her side. And I wrote about the case because he was actually sentenced years before he killed her for abuse. So he lost his job, he was a police officer, and he lost about everything. And while I was writing this book, I met quite a lot of people who said, don't do it. There's no point. No one will publish this book.
Yeah.
But I eventually found
so it is
förlag, a book publisher who wanted.
Yeah.
and he changed his mind in the very last minute and said, no, it's not possible. Rewrite it as a novel. And I said, I can't do that, I'm a journalist.
Yeah.
I want to tell this story because it's important.
Because they don't want it to be real, you see. They want it to be fictionalized.
Yeah.
They don't want it to be real.
He said no one will believe this. He was also a very tall man, police officer, and she was around my size, skinny. And she, just as you told, was capable of hurting him quite a lot. But he told me that the worst part was the verbal abuse. She was phenomenal at that, and it's a really sad story. And I was so glad when I saw this, because maybe something's about to change. Because my book came out 6 years ago.
6 years.
And it was kind of buried.
Yeah.
But I haven't been working on it for quite a while, but now I got the idea that I was...
The book in Swedish.
Yes,
in Swedish. But after you will tell us the book.
Yeah. But now I am going to write a master thesis about this, about men, how they experience different kind of authorities, like social service, police, healthcare.
Men victims.
Yeah.
Men victims, if they do ask for help, how do they experience the response?
Yeah.
So I'm here today to...
We have to speak after.
See,
definitely.
No, he killed his partner. But if he'd spoken out and he'd been believed, then there would have been no loss of life. So guys, I have to speak out. I don't know, maybe one of you guys is suffering from domestic violence. Maybe you do know somebody who is suffering from domestic violence, but you don't know it. You know, maybe you know somebody, but you don't know it. But they need to speak out.
But it's interesting that it's not the victims itself, but it's the ones who want to help victims that seems that are also shut down, right? And when it's for men.
You are. So if you go onto the Women's Aid website, the headline on the Women's Aid website is "Domestic Violence is a Gendered Crime." This is a group that's at the forefront of domestic violence awareness, putting that message out there. And it's absolutely ridiculous. You go onto the Respect website, then you'll find men and women there. And it's if you click on Help for Men, it will say, are you a victim of abuse? Are you an abuser? Click on the help, and then it gives you one website to go to for help. If you click on Help for Women, it won't ask if you're an abuser. And it'll give you pages and pages of help. Things need to change.
Which happens that we do not have services to help men victims, and we do not have programs to help women who are aggressors.
Yeah.
We
It's
don't
true.
have both sides.
Helping male victims can help women as well, because it helps the female perpetrators. So, you know, ignoring male victims ignores a section of women as well. So, things need to change. The whole society needs to change.
It needs to de-genderdize.
Oh God, yeah.
What doesn't have a gender, right?
Yeah, and it's. I know it's hard for guys to speak out. I do. I didn't speak out until after I'd written the book, but you need to. It ain't going to change unless you speak out.
The interesting thing is that the women victims want to help men victims, so there is no bad words against a man who is a victim by a female victim. They had suffered so many women had suffered so much that they are in synchrony with the man that is a victim. They can understand perfectly, and they will never say no. So it's people who are not victimized who are considering the gender part of the violence in intimate relationships.
There's only one female victim that criticised what I wrote, and she'd read my book and she went, "It's not as bad as what I went through." And I was like, "It's not a competition." A victim is a victim. That's it.
Yeah.
Abuse is abuse. It doesn't matter whether you've been beaten the hell out of or it's one slap. Abuse is abuse, and it shouldn't happen to anybody. Man, woman, child, nothing.
Exactly. And we start now with. I'm starting with English speakers due to my incapacity to speak Swedish, but my idea is to make the investigation, the research here in Sweden, and to come up how many men there are in Sweden that are suffering what John suffered. I don't believe that there is none, because when I start to scratch and trying to find out information, there is not so much information about men victims at all. And there are, of course, the reports from BROA that we know, the reports from the police, but when it comes, but we want to self-report this important part of men that are not even aware that they are victims. That is what they tell me, that at the beginning I could not understand that I am being a victim because men are not victims, and that's what they themselves. So I hope that my work is in direction of making all the study in Sweden.
I hope me coming here and talking about this helps.
We hope so. That's the idea. Does anyone want to put the question directly? John? Yeah?
Thank you. I actually put some questions on Menti already, that's why I've been sitting with my phone. But I might as well say it in the mic as well. I was thinking about, for men in, poisonous relationships, abusive relationships, what is the best way for them to get out of them quickly, to realize the problems? Because I actually know a person who has been in an abusive relationship for 16 years. He's out of it now, but they have 2 daughters together, and he was abused every day, but he couldn't get out of it because of the same reasons you pointed out. But it took 16 years to get out of it, and he's not affected directly anymore, but the daughters are affected instead.
How old are his daughters?
Now they're around 20.
Okay. And he was in it for 16. So he already had did he have his daughters when?
No.
Early on in the relationship?
They got the daughters together.
Did they have the daughter before the abuse?
No.
No. Okay. So a lot of the reasons why he would have stayed is probably the same as mine, because he thought he could fix it. He thought he could be the man that she wanted him to be. And then when the daughter comes along, that's complicated then, because you're there for the kids. Getting out of it is difficult. The realization that you're being abused may come, but all them factors of keeping you there are very, very strong. And getting out of it is really difficult. You've got to come to a realization that if you're in an abusive relationship, even if you've got a child, that abusive relationship is no good for the child. No good at all. It's no good for you, it's no good for her, it's no good for the child. And you've got to get out and you've got to speak. And that is a very, very difficult thing to do. Really difficult thing to do. But you've just got to take that step. You've just got to be brave enough to do it, because it takes guts to walk away from that. It takes guts to walk away from your kid. But you've got to, because if you're thinking of the child through staying, thinking how much better that child's life is going to be if you leave. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Perhaps we look at Menti. Did any of you put questions on Menti, through Menti? No? Perhaps we will answer your questions in the podcast.
Yeah.
It's okay, Johan?
Yeah.
For you? Okay. Any other comment? With what you were telling, it's the last man that I interviewed, he was in this situation. So he had one daughter, it was a toddler, around 1 year, when for him, he just needed to go out, and he told me, broke my heart completely. When I was left with the car, I was driving, I don't know what distance, almost 400 kilometers in the United Kingdom, and I cried all the way, knowing that I didn't know when I would see my daughter again, and that broke, and I still broken inside because of that. It's difficult to live with the feeling that I abandoned her in the hands of a woman that I knew that was not responsible. In his case, the mother of the woman, so the mother of the abuser, was also taking care of the daughter, and was what saved his mental health to not just turn completely crazy with the idea. But he told me that it was absolutely the most difficult thing that he has done ever in his life, and he was now 52 years old, was the feeling of abandoning his own daughter. It must be terrible. Yeah.
Any questions? Any other questions? Okay.
So thank you very much for coming here
Thank
and
you.
for sharing these moments with us. And we will close the seminar, but we will continue. We will have my email. We will continue to be here, and if you come up with questions or with things that you want to discuss, we will be delighted. Okay, thank you. Thank you, John.
Hello, pupils of Mid Sweden University. I came along on the 11th and did an interview with Teresa, and from that interview about my abuse at the hands of my girlfriend, then you had quite a few questions. We weren't able to answer your questions on that day, so I thought I'd make this little video and answer all your questions that you sent. Excuse me looking down, because this is where the questions are and I have to read them out. Did Monica ever apologise for her behaviour? No, is the answer. She didn't apologise because she didn't believe she did anything wrong. She always said that I had ruined her life, that that I'd ruined her son's life, even though her son lived in Romania. She never apologised for anything. She denied abuse altogether, and it was all the fault of me. So no, she never apologised at all. Question 2. Has the previous relationship affected the new relationship? How you manage or how you feel? Now, this question was asked when I was at in the interview with Teresa, and I said no, never affected me at all. Thinking about it on the way back to England, then I realised, yeah, it did affect me in ways. It affected me in the beginning because I thought, at the back of my head, there was all these questions of when's this going to go wrong, when's this girl going to turn bad, and it kept me at a distance for a while. The other way it affected me was when I was with Monica, anything could set her off, and when we were in bed, I could turn or breathe heavy, sniff, and that would fire her up. That would, she would go crazy at me. She would storm out of bed and go sleep in the other room. So I learned to be very, very still and
very, very quiet. Even if I was in a uncomfortable position, I wouldn't move. I'd be cramped, and just so I didn't annoy her. When I, excuse me, when I was in my new relationship, even now, she says that I'm very, very quiet and very, very still in bed. I sleep right on the edge of the bed because I needed to be a good distance away from Monica. So now I've got to the habit of sleeping right on the edge of the bed. I am very, very quiet and very, very still. And that's all psychological training from previous relationships. So in that way, it does affect it. It doesn't stop me from loving the girl that I have now. It doesn't stop me from enjoying what we have together. But the sleeping thing is the biggest way it affected me. Were you ever accused of abusive behaviours she did to you? I wasn't accused of the abusive behaviours, but there was one incident that I say in my book where we made love and she accused me after that of rape, or threatened to report me for raping her. That really frightened me. That frightened me because I knew what kind of woman she is. You know, I knew that she could turn around and say anything about me, and me being a man, she'd be believed. Women are the victims, men are the perpetrators. This is how the psychology of the police is. And that was really frightening. But she didn't report me, and she didn't accuse me to the police. She just denied everything to the police. Can you give an example that you would do in daily life that would start a conflict? Anything. I'll give you, I already gave you an example of, like, I'd move in bed, I would breathe too heavy, or sniff or whatever. That would cause conflict. Disagreeing with her would cause conflict. She called me into the bathroom one day, and again, this is in the book, and she called me into the bathroom, and I'd left the toilet seat up. Now, I know that can be frustrating for you ladies out there, if your partners leave the toilet seat up, but she ranted, shouted for a good 5-6 minutes, just shouting in my face that I shouldn't have done that. And not only should I not have left the toilet seat up, I should put the toilet seat down but leave the lid up, because when she wanted to go to the toilet at night in the dark, she wanted to be able to go into the bathroom and sit straight down onto the toilet without doing anything. That was my fault. Shouldn't have done it. I started off by laughing, soon found out that was the wrong thing to do, and I ended up apologising for it, unfortunately. So, yeah, it could be anything, really. Anything could start a conflict. 5A and 5B. Did you ever handle the abuse by being abusive yourself? And 5B is, did you ever physically violently react to the abuse? We have to distinguish between what is abuse and what is aggression. They are two entirely different things. If you hit somebody, that's not necessarily abuse. That would be aggression. Abuse, the difference, abuse is control. You hit somebody because you want to control that person. And it isn't a one-off thing. It's a regular thing. It's a regular occurrence. And it usually comes hand in hand with psychological abuse, psychological manipulation, emotional manipulation, coercive control, gaslighting. It comes with a package, really. Aggression is totally different. And when I was attacked the first big time, before I was attacked, I spoke to a friend, about why would Monica hit me and what I can do about it. And she said that I needed to be a Romanian man. I can't be an English man, I have to be a Romanian man. And a Romanian man would hit his woman. And I was like, I don't want to hit anybody. But she insisted that the only way to control Monica and to stop her from hitting me is to hit her. One night, Monica attacked me. I mean, big time attacked me. And I took her friend's advice and sort of slapped her in a half-hearted way. Sort of, I didn't want to do it, but like, maybe this is the way to handle things. Her mate was wrong. Her mate was totally wrong. Monica went mental. She kicked me, punched me, spat at me in the face. She kicked me in between my legs. She repeatedly kicked me on my back. And the next day I collapsed at work and was taken into hospital. I had 5 weeks off work, 3 of those were on crutches. I never slapped her again, never even attempted to. The next time I laid hands on her kind of thing, well, I laid hands on her trying to keep her off sometimes, trying to keep her away from me, trying to stop being hurt. But it was sort of just hands up, stay away, stay away. Then the last time that she hit me, we were in my spare room in the flat, and she was between me and the door, and I needed to get out of there. I was going to get battered if I didn't get out of there. And she, only being a little girl, I picked her up and threw her onto the bed and escaped. Those are the times that I laid hands on her. When you're brought up like myself, if you don't hit a woman, even when that woman is fisting you in the face, you don't raise a hand. So my mum and dad brought me up well, but they didn't protect me in any way. Next question. Did she ever deny the abusive things she did to you? Yes, she did. All the time. How often? All the time. She denied it all the time. No way did she do anything wrong, and she completely denied any abusive behaviour at all. And the final question: can you tell me what silent treatment is, and how did it make you feel? The silent treatment is refusing to communicate at all. I hate that. I would rather have an argument than be ignored. The silent treatment, you have no control. It's frightening. You don't know how they feel. You can't tell them how you feel because they don't want to know. And it's really frightening. It's really lonely. You don't know when that silent treatment is going to explode into something huge. So, yeah, that's horrible, absolutely horrible. And to shut your emotions off is just possibly the worst thing you can do. If you're in a relationship, if anybody out there is in a relationship, you need to talk. If you've got problems, you need to talk. You need to communicate. Don't give them the cold shoulder. I'm not talking to you. Don't do it. Just communicate with each other, care about one another, love each other. Thank you very, very much for your questions. I hope I've answered them all. And if you have any more questions, just tell Teresa and she'll get in touch with me and I'll make another video like this. Okay? You take care. Peace.